All right, let's do this. We're going to try something kind of crazy today. All of economics. Everything you need to know in about 5 minutes. Yeah, I know. So forget the boring textbooks. We're cutting right to the chase. The big ideas that pretty much run the world. You might want to buckle up. So, first things first, why does economics even exist? I mean, what's the point? Well, it all boils down to one super simple, very human problem. It's simple, right? You want stuff. We all do. Food, a place to live, maybe a phone with a better camera. Our wants are pretty much endless. And that, right there, that's the starting gun for the entire field of economics. But, and here's the big but, there's a problem. There's not an infinite supply of any of that stuff. The world only has so much to go around. So you've got this epic clash, right? Unlimited wants versus limited stuff. And that clash, well, that's economics. This whole problem has a name, and it's the most important word in economics: scarcity. It just means we can't have it all. And because we can't, we have to make choices. And economics, that's really just the science of how we all make those choices. And every single choice has a hidden price tag. It's called opportunity cost. Basically, whenever you choose to do one thing, you're also choosing not to do something else. So the opportunity cost of watching this, it might be the joy of watching cat videos on the internet. Hopefully, we're the better choice. Okay, so this idea of cost is why we trade with each other. It's a concept called comparative advantage. Now check this out. Even if one country is better at making everything, it still makes sense for everyone to specialize. It all comes back to opportunity cost. For Brazil, making coffee means giving up very little corn. For Canada, it's the other way around. So if Brazil just makes coffee and Canada just makes corn, and then they trade, boom, they both end up with more of everything. It's kind of like magic. Specialization and trade make everybody richer. All right, so we're all specializing and trading. But where does all this happen? Well, that brings us to the engine of the economy: markets. And a market can be anything, from the New York Stock Exchange to your local farmer's market. The location doesn't matter. What matters is that it's where buyers and sellers meet. And the one rule that makes it all work? Incentives. That's it. We all respond to incentives. So, how do these markets actually tick? Well, it's this beautiful dance between two forces. Supply, that's how much stuff is out there. And demand, that's how much people want it. And where those two meet, that's the sweet spot. The equilibrium price. It's that magical price where the number of things for sale exactly matches the number of people who want to buy them. Okay, but for this whole system to work smoothly, you need some fuel. I mean, you can't really trade a bag of coffee beans for an hour of Wi-Fi, right? It gets complicated. And that's exactly why we invented money. I love this way of putting it. Money isn't valuable in itself. It's just economic lube. It's a tool that makes trade easy. It's a medium of exchange, so we don't have to barter chickens for haircuts. It's a unit of account, so we can all agree on what something's worth. And it's a store of value, so you can save up. It just makes the whole engine run without grinding to a halt. So this leads to the big question everyone always asks. If money is so great, why don't we just print more of it? Like, a lot more. Make everyone a millionaire. Sounds good, right? Well, yeah, there's a huge catch. And here's the catch, laid out perfectly. Imagine you double the amount of money in the world overnight, but the amount of stuff to buy is still exactly the same. What happens? Well, prices just double. It's that simple. More money chasing the same old stuff just means every single dollar becomes worth less. And that, my friends, is inflation. So who's in charge of not letting this happen? That's the job of central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the US. The best way to think of them is like a thermostat for the economy. They control interest rates, which is basically the price of borrowing money. If the economy is running too hot and you get inflation, they crank up the rates to cool it down. If it's too cold and sluggish, they lower the rates to heat it back up. All right, so we've got all this buying, selling, and borrowing going on, but how do we know if we're winning? How do we keep score and measure the health of an entire country's economy? Well, the big scoreboard is something called GDP, or Gross Domestic Product. It's just the total value of everything a country makes and sells in a year. But here's the key. We only count the final goods. So you count the price of the finished car, not the tires and the steel and the glass separately. Otherwise, you'd be counting the same stuff over and over. And this is how they calculate it. It looks complicated, but it's really just adding up all the spending in an economy. So you've got C for consumption, that's you buying stuff. I is for investment, businesses buying new equipment. G is for government spending. And then you add exports and subtract imports. That's pretty much the whole shebang. But here's the thing about GDP. It doesn't just go up and up in a nice, neat line. Economies breathe. They have a natural cycle. You get periods of fast growth, we call those booms, and then you get periods where things shrink, and we call those recessions. It's totally normal, just the natural rhythm of the system. Okay, last section. We've talked about all these clean models and systems, but there's a giant, messy glitch in the matrix we haven't mentioned yet. And that glitch? It's us. It's people. See, traditional economics is built on this big assumption that people are always rational, that we always make logical choices to get the most for ourselves. But a newer field, behavioral economics, kind of just looks at that idea and laughs. Because let's be real, we're not rational. We're emotional, we're weird, we're chaos merchants. Yeah, our brains are just wired a bit funny. For instance, we feel the pain of losing $20 way more than the joy of finding $20. We'll stick with a bad decision, like finishing a terrible movie, just because we've already invested time in it. And we follow the herd. If everyone else is panic buying toilet paper, suddenly we feel like we need to, too. This stuff isn't trivial. Our weird human psychology is what drives huge economic events, like stock market bubbles. So, all these messy human choices have to happen inside of a larger system. And you can kind of think of these systems on a spectrum. Over here, you've got capitalism, which is an absolute powerhouse for innovation and creating wealth. But it can also create a ton of inequality. And over here, you've got socialism, which really focuses on equality for everyone, but sometimes struggles to get people motivated. The truth is, though, almost every country on Earth is somewhere in the middle, a mixed economy, trying to get the best of both worlds. So, let's wrap this up. What are the big takeaways from this whirlwind tour? 1. Scarcity is a fact of life. 2. Incentives are what make the world go round. 3. Trade makes us all wealthier. And finally, governments are always going to be involved. Taxing, spending, and regulating. There's no perfect system. It's always about the trade-offs. And that really leaves us with one final thought. Every system, whether it's capitalism, socialism, or something in between, is really just trying to answer 3 basic questions. What should we make? How should we make it? And who gets the stuff once we've made it? The crazy part? No one's figured out the perfect answer yet. And that constant search is what makes economics so important and, honestly, so fascinating.